Well, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone that is able to join us today. My friend Maurice and I are very excited to share some really life altering, I would say, exploration. And um, we are very grateful that you are taking some time and giving us 45 minutes of your time today to learn with us and grow with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Maurice. Maurice actually created a tool, a life tool called the Life Inventory Assessment. He has been coaching for approximately 15 years. He also was in banking and in tech, which was a very interesting factoid for me because I also come from a tech background. And what I find fascinating is usually, you'll get um, people have some perceptions about the people in banking and technology, right? That they maybe are not as in tune with some of these tools and some of these things that we will be discussing today. Um, and it's a great opportunity to really explore something unique and different. So Maurice, tell us a little bit about you and your company and what inspired you to change from tech
Hmm.
to life coaching to being an entrepreneurial therapist, which I love that title,
Hmm.
by the way.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for doing this collaboration with me, and for first of all for being open to do what we're going to do today, which is open up the details of your life map. Which going through someone's life map is one of the most fun. Like I find it fun,
Yes.
and trusted spaces I get to be in. So the fact that you're willing to do that publicly is pretty damn cool in my books. So for me, this process that you've gone through, and that eventually I decided that, hey, this is something I need to share with the world. It's really actually a part of my transition story.
Mhm.
As somebody that was doing all the things that, went to school, got job, found the right place, got married, had wonderful children. I was following a really conscious approach of like, what are we doing? How are we living? And I was fortunate enough to have a partner that was willing to engage in that conscious approach with me. And so we would do a retreat every year and say, how are we living our lives? And before that retreat, I would pull in everything that I had kind of taken from leadership training, from what I was reading in personal development, and I would tweak our workbook a little bit. And when I was started to feel not in alignment with what I was creating at work, of how I was being fulfilled at work, when that was not as full as I thought it really could be and needed to be, I started to, start to actually, my body came at me with anxiety. And
Yeah.
so, and as someone that I had a process to like make sense of that, and I'm like, okay. And I tried, but eventually it was just I could tell that I wasn't in alignment.
Hmm.
And that helped me have the courage to say, okay, I need to figure out something that's more fulfilling.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I didn't know what exactly that was going to be. That was the a pretty deep dark sea that I dove into. That had a whole bunch of fanfare and lots of like, hey man, you did it. And it was like, yeah, I did it. And then like 6 months into it, I'm like, oh shit, sorry, what did
That's okay.
what what did I do?
Yeah.
Was this the right thing? And that led me, it's been almost 6 years to the date, actually, to, becoming a master hypnotherapist, because I
Mhm.
needed therapy for the first time in my life. And then I learned this expansive um, depth of personal development training, and I just took it. That led to me coaching and bringing what I learned as an entrepreneur and the punching bag of an experience that
Yeah.
is, to work with executives and entrepreneurs that are either going through the same types of things.
Hmm.
And in that practice, that led me to eventually, like when I was working with clients, I would manually, like on a whiteboard, hey, like tell me about your life, and I would get to know
Mhm.
them really, really quickly and really deeply, and then that would impact and direct our work together. And being from tech, I knew kind of how to create a product or at least a path. So I'm like, I woke up one November morning. I'm like, I got to bring this into the world.
Mhm.
So here we are. I've got a product I'm really proud about. We teach coaches how to use it and impact their clients. So that brings us to this moment. I get to meet wonderful people like you and introduce the work to you and have that help people come into that, or what I call radical self-awareness.
Mm.
If we can
I
come into
love that.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
love that. Yes. It's interesting, right? Because I've been in the personal development and coaching industry adjacent, I would say, right? I did it as part of my day to day job in tech, but never had to pay my bills, right? So I call it was a side hustle.
mhm,
But it really was what filled me at work to help people kind of live their maximum potential
yeah,
and sometimes help them discover what they were best at because they quite didn't know how to get there. They had an inkling that something was missing in their
mhm,
journey and in their path, but they
mhm,
didn't quite understand how to uncover, how to identify what was missing, and then how to uncover how to fill that gap and
mhm,
that hole. And 2023 was an interesting year for me. It was a very painful and difficult year, one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, and I thought I had been through some heavy things,
mhm,
but 2023 really, kicked my ass.
mhm,
and
yeah,
and it, it's interesting because it was almost like the universe sent you to me. I know that sounds maybe hokey, but I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of people that I know that I've worked with in the industry, both from a coaching perspective and a tech perspective.
mhm,
And when I did my doctoral work, I also have a lot of academics in my network,
mhm,
and I've seen 1,001 assessments.
mhm,
I've seen and been trained in many coaching techniques,
yeah,
and I get a lot of reach outs from different people trying to sell me some way or another to be a better coach, be a better leader, da 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 da.
mhm,
Your message was we were not a direct connection,
mhm,
which usually I don't answer the messages from people that are not my direct connections because they're trying to sell me something.
mhm,
But your message was crisp and simple, and it first offered to add value to me as an individual. And I always tell my coaching community and my mentees, um, as a leader, you need to constantly keep growing and exploring. And because 2023 was such a difficult year, I honestly was in a place of trying to figure out how do I lift myself up again? Because
mhm,
I can't be a good coach or a good leader if I have nothing in the tank.
mhm,
And I had nothing in the tank. The
yep,
tank was in negative nothing, right?
yep, yep,
Um, and it took me weeks. You sent me the link and it took me weeks. You sent me a quick follow-up. Hey, are you gonna? And I said, hey, look, I don't know what I was going through. And you said, no, no worries, no rush, no pressure, right? Do it
mhm,
when you can. And right during, I think it was right after Christmas, right after kind of New Year's, I was in this space in my tea shop and I was like, oh, I think I'm in a good place to do this now. I'm gonna go do that. And I went and did it. And now we're gonna share it with the world. And I want to tell everybody that, it was interesting for me because it was extremely revealing. Maurice and I had never spoken before. All he had was the data from my life inventory assessment. And it was shocking how on point he was when he didn't know anything about me other than the data from the
mhm,
inventory assessment. And I felt it was so groundbreaking and so different from anything that I had been exposed to before that I really wanted to share it with everyone out there.
Mm,
I'm hoping that you also find value in it. This is not a sales pitch. This is not a. It's something that I found valuable and similar to how Maurice gave it to me without strings. I'm sharing with you kind of ooh, my skin is because
mm,
it's
yeah.
very personal, but I am sharing it with you um as I usually like to be very honest and transparent with my followers, but also in the hopes that if you're going through your own life transition, if you're going through something also quite transformative and you need a light, you need something, and you just don't know quite what it is, I would highly recommend this particular. It's more than an assessment, this particular journey. I
Mm,
love Maurice's company is called Illumination Experiences, and that's really what I feel I'm going through and what I felt when he and I were doing um, a quick debrief. It was very quick. So right now, today, we're going to go a little deeper. I don't know what's going to come out. So hang on for the ride. Maurice, be gentle with me because, who knows who's going to see this.
mhm, mhm.
But I trust you, and I appreciate that we're doing this together. For those out there that are watching, you can comment, say hello, and also start putting your questions in the chat. And after we're done with the life map, or if it's appropriate during the review, we are happy to answer either from Maurice's point of view as the person evaluating my data, or I'm happy to answer it from my point of view as the person receiving the information. So, Maurice,
Mm.
I hand it to you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before we open up your life map, it it might be relevant to just share if you're listening to this, like who is this relevant for?
Yes.
Um, I think you really described the personal path really, really well because that's what you were on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, if you're on a personal path, similar to what I've been through and what I do every year, often you might be at a transition or crossroads, and a dose of radical self awareness might help you to kind of pop out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to, like, one of the things I actually just thought of this wording today was, um, moving towards radical self awareness to pop out of the stories of your past and into the stories of your future.
Ooh.
Often we're carrying around the stories that are holding us back and we can't see
Mm.
them because we're too close to them. So when you have a
Mm-hmm.
framework, which this is,
Mm-hmm.
it's how it was designed. It was meant to pop us into awareness of where the
Mm-hmm.
heck are we and where are we going. So that's one individual. Two, if you're a coach, so that,
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Renee, you
Mm-hmm.
you represent both of these, right?
Yes.
Because
Mm-hmm.
you're looking as a coach and
Mm-hmm.
um, as someone that helps organizations. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're a coach that helps people find clarity, find focus, change behavior, change mindsets, and move into fulfillment, if you're that type of coach, then this is absolutely relevant just as a tool, as a tool that's available to you. And then finally, if you belong to an organization, so if you're in HR, people and culture, if you have some role that
Mm-hmm.
makes decisions around training and development, team cohesion, then this is a beautiful corporate workshop to pop people into radical self awareness and then radical self reliance to bring their best to work and beyond. So those would be the three, I think, major roles or
Wow.
listening
Mm-hmm.
lenses that I think this would be most helpful for. And if you're just a personal development junkie like us, then hey, buckle up. And it's going to be, I won't, maybe entertaining. Um, I don't know. For what it's worth, like, people love to see other people be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you are you're not just trusting me and us in this space. You're trusting this community to receive you as you are. To
Mhm,
say, hey, this is me. I got
mhm,
stuff. And I
mhm,
just went through a really hard year, and here's my stuff.
mhm.
Um, Man, I honor that so, so much. So thank you for allowing this community to have a little look, actually, big look at your life details.
Thank you.
So before I do that, just because it's part of my process, do I have the permission to share your life map with me and with everyone that might be watching?
You absolutely do.
Okay, so I have a couple of steps I gotta do before I get that right screen.
For those watching, please say hello. I am, as you know, when you see me with magic in the week, I can't go on LinkedIn to see, so you have to type and say hello and ask your questions and start queuing up. If you have no questions, that's okay too.
Okay, yes, that should bring us into alignment. Good. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to need to apologize for is I'm going to be mostly like this. I'm going to come back and forth, but I need to be able to see Renee's face as I go through this uh, because we're doing a rapid reading. This is going to be a somewhat atypical because instead of me having kind of a deep discussion, a deep dialogue with Renee as the client today,
Mm-hmm.
that's invited us to go through a life review. I'm going to be mostly watching your visual cues for like validations and affirmations that we're on the right track. So to begin with, I just want to share what are we looking at when we open up someone's life map? Because if you've never seen this before, it just looks like bubbles on a screen. So I'll give a really quick orientation.
Looks like a Gartner quadrant for me. For those in
Okay.
tech, you know Gartner, so that's what it looks like.
Um, so Renee spent about 15 or 20 minutes going through an assessment to get this result. And that's the life inventory assessment, the framework that I created, that I've spent like hundreds of hours thinking about the questions along with my partner, Dr. Douglas Tatarin. Um, and it's simple, right? It was pretty simple to go
Yeah.
through. Like people go
Mm-hmm.
through it, it's like, oh well, this isn't that complicated, and that's the beauty. It's meant to just create flow, go through all the questions. In that assessment, you evaluate 13 life categories,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and radical self-awareness doesn't come if you only pick the categories that you just want to focus on right away. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like we want to look at the big picture, and you're going to see why because it's going to allow us to see some patterns and potential blind spots. Um, in that assessment, Dr. Renee ranked the very first thing she did is she ranked the priority of her life categories. So each of these bubbles represents a life category. Okay, and you see on the right, it describes how that life category is described or defined in the context of this. So she's ranked the categories in her life that are the most important to the least important. So most is number one with love life, and least is number 13 with social contributions. And I know Dr. Renee, and I know that social contributions are really important in her life. So these things are all really important things. Um, and what the force rank does is allow someone, right? In this case, Dr. Renee, to go and just set your own priorities. What is most important to you with no one else playing that fiddle? No one, like this is meant to be a very self reflective process, normally wouldn't be shared with the world. And it's an opportunity to say, what's most important in my life right now to me above all others? The value in that question is it can really help us to gain focus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things that we're doing with this work is like set goals of the practice is we want to go through and find focus. we've got so much stuff in our abundant lives that we're thinking about, that we're stressing about, that we're optimizing and maximizing. So it's really hard for us to, it's actually impossible for our brains to think about it all at once and actually create like priorities and strategies that make sense. It's also impossible for most of us, I would say, like 99%. Like, you can't have a primary focus in every one of these categories and be successful. Like, you'll just be in overwhelm and like chaos. So what we want to do is we look at the big picture so that we can like narrow down our focus to say, okay, what's working and what's not, and what's the focal point that, if improved from where it is to where you want it to be, will impact in a positive way all the other categories.
Like a
And
halo effect.
yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
when we find that focus, beautiful things happen. You know, increased
Mhm.
momentum, increased energy, um, increased hopefulness. So that's our goal in looking at the big picture, is to find either one central point of focus or a focal theme. Sometimes there's a theme that, like, sometimes it's a limiting belief theme or a mindset theme
Mhm.
that like applies to almost everything. When that's on the surface, hey, like if you're a coach working with a client and you get that, you're ready to do your most important work, and create results really, really fast, which is why we do the work we do. It's to support people. Okay, so our goal is to find focus and take that focus to create inspired action, right? Because it's not just about knowing your focus, it's about grounding that focus in actual action for us to live a better life. And that only happens when we step into it. And we're gonna get into the layers of data that helps with it with this assessment.
Before you go into that, I wanna, uh, kinda drop in a quick kind
Mm-hmm.
of question and observation. First, the observation or the context. I work with a lot of people that are first-time managers or, they're starting to kind of really climb up the corporate ladder, and they, at the same time, are getting married and having babies and,
Yes.
doing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of pressure. I hear from my clients, there's a lot of pressure to kind of perform in all these areas.
Yeah.
And do you find, here's the question piece, do you find that there's a little bit of a struggle from the people that you see of, oh my god, how come I can't do all of these as well, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
that guilt almost, which is a little bit of what I felt when I
Mm-hmm.
looked at my yellow bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly my social contributions, right? It's like, oh my god, I'm being a terrible
Mm-hmm.
person, you know, not giving back to my peer group or my society, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hear from others?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. That sense of wanting to do it all is absolutely very prevalent,
Hmm.
and it creates that angst, right? It creates
Hmm.
the hustle and the chaos.
Hmm.
So it quite often comes into this work, and so where we direct that conversation, yeah, I love this phrase. It's helping people understand ages and stages.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Hey, look at your age and your
Ages
stage
and
right
stages. I
right
love
now,
that. Hmm.
and know that this is where you're at right now in your life.
Hmm.
So prioritize, right, what's most important right now without sacrificing your non-negotiables.
Hmm.
And it can help a person come to peace with some of the temporal choices and sacrifices.
Oh, that's powerful, right? I have a saying to my clients: don't let temporary emotions, don't make permanent decisions on temporary emotions.
Hmm.
And what you said just resonates so well with that thought,
Hmm.
because I think we carry, working mothers, right? And I'm sure working
Yeah.
dads, we carry all this guilt
Hmm.
around, trying to provide and also feel fulfilled in our own search for what our purpose is and other than being a mother, right? There's so many facets to us. So
Mhm,
that's fascinating to even come to terms with. That
mhm,
is groundbreaking. Thank
mm.
you.
No, thanks for the question. Really great. Okay, so if you're watching this, you might be looking at all these life categories, and you might even think like, how would I have ranked them? So there's just a little
Mhm,
engagement piece, right? You could have a
mhm,
piece of paper right now and being like, how would I rank these if I was doing this?
mhm,
Um, so uh, the next point in the life map that I want to explain is how do the bubbles get to where they are? So there's the fulfillment axis. And the fulfillment
mhm,
axis measures how you ranked your level of fulfillment in that category. The further to the right it is, if they show up in flow, this is an interactive online life map that Dr. Renee has a copy of as soon as
mhm,
she completed the assessment. So if they show up in flow or ease in either one of those quadrants, that means they're in total fulfillment. In total, as per the way we measure it, is an 8.5 or greater out of 10 in ranking. So this axis here is 8.5. It's not 5. We're not
mhm,
here to measure and guide you
mhm,
through a
mhm,
mediocre life to a we're here to measure and guide and set goals around living a full and abundant life, like 8.5 or greater out of 10. And 8.5 was chosen. Everything in this is chosen very, very consciously because you've got that many high achievers that will never rank anything a 9 or a 10.
mhm,
And they might just like, usually they end up in eights. And I
mhm,
see that all the time with high achievers. And then we get to talk about it. And we say, well, is that serving you? How is it not serving you? So there's a mindset pattern that often shows up.
mhm,
You don't have that pattern. And the reason I know, right, because you don't have a straight line, and
mhm,
you've got several of your categories all the way in with love, character, spirituality, and immediate family, all the way in total fulfillment. Both your head and your heart were aligned when you answered two of the questions in the assessment to say, yeah, things are working here.
mhm,
So that's how things get from top to bottom and left to right in an instant for me. And this is the experience you had, right? When we first did this,
mhm,
I'm pretending like it's the first time because that's the easiest way for me to authentically show up.
mhm,
Um, it's you can look at somebody's life map, and when you know what you're looking for, have a really clear sense of what's happening. Also, so I'm going to give you a narrative. I'm going to come back to you now, though, so I
mhm,
can look at you with that narrative and explain kind of some of the things that I'm seeing. Okay, so right away, I can see that you've got several, as I just mentioned, of your life categories in complete fulfillment. That tells me not only that are you not holding yourself back from being able to rank and receive total fulfillment in an area, so you don't have that pattern of high achiever holdback.
mhm,
Um, it tells me that you've got a really firm foundation and grounding, particularly with these categories.
mhm,
And some of these categories are interpersonal, love, and
mhm,
immediate family. So it's like you've got a grounding and a community of loving, supporting relationships in your life that are
mhm,
helping you flow, helping you live, helping you be abundant. Um, so there's a lot of celebration there. If we had more time,
mhm,
what I might do is take you into like a gratitude exercise.
mhm,
I might
mhm,
kind of have you drop into your body and really
mhm,
just kind of look at the abundance that your life does have.
mhm,
As we're doing a rapid review, I'll see what else I'll go to. I always like go to curiously find your area of focus. So
mhm,
I'm gonna look at this one first because it's a little bigger. Okay, so if you're looking at this, right, remember furthest to the left means it's more out of alignment, and high means it's higher priority. So in your
Mhm.
financial life, because it's number two, and it's not like compared to your entire life map. It's like the physical health is a little bit further,
Mhm.
but it's one of your most unfulfilled areas.
Mhm.
So that's where I moved towards to think, I wonder what's happening there.
Mhm.
And this is when we were talking,
Mhm.
without you telling me what had happened.
Mhm.
Like we learned about your recent transitions, and
Mhm.
so it's like I have the curiosity to double click on that, and I literally mean double click because we got a lot more data to look at. So then the next thing, so I'm we've done this once, so I know that that was actually bang on.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
then
and not to lose the audience, right? And
yeah,
to be totally transparent, for those of you that don't know or don't follow me regularly, after 28 years with the same company, but in different roles, um, I transitioned out of that organization, not necessarily willingly, right? And it was 4 months after my mother passed, which Maurice didn't know. And, you know, that's where some of that financial insecurity came from. At the time when I was taking this, I didn't have the clarity that I have now, actually, in large part thanks to this process, because I didn't want to go back into a situation where, I would be in another corporate organization that, they're very prone, just corporations in general, large corp is prone to mass layoffs and just kind of the ebb and flow of the market. And I didn't want that again. And this actually helped me provide that clarity, which it was something that wasn't there at the time, but there's more. So
mm,
back to you, Maurice.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Uh, and the other two pieces that I am looking at, sometimes the clarity is like really obvious or something. Pardon me. Your life map is a little less obvious.
Hmm.
Um, I have an interest in looking at emotional health.
Hmm.
And I say that for two reasons. What we know about mental and emotional health is it's a pervasive category. It
Yeah.
affects everything, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so knowing that that's a pervasive category, that it is in your top six and it's to the left,
Hmm.
and knowing that usually if we're not feeling secure financially, it
Hmm.
brings up a whole bunch of stuff emotionally. So even though like financial is you have that as the number two, I'm guessing like that's the thing that's on fire right now and you really are motivated to fix. There's probably an underbelly of that
Hmm.
that's probably related to emotional health. So I'm really interested in double clicking on that and having
Hmm.
a conversation to be like,
Yeah.
how are you supporting yourself?
Hmm.
Do you have a network? Are you seeing like I'm curious of what's going on there?
Hmm.
And then the other one is physical health. And there's two reasons that I'm pulling that out. One, if you're a quick study, you also know that physical health is a pervasive category.
Hmm.
It affects everything.
Hmm.
So I'm always interested in it. It's to the left, and I'm noticing it's a smaller bubble
Hmm.
because I know how to read this map.
Hmm.
Um, Smaller bubble means that in all five dimensions that you answered, the bubble size represents your overall health score.
Hmm.
And even with some of these other ones that are to the left, your overall health score is like pretty, like it's a fair
Hmm.
size. This is like you can see, it's a smaller one.
Hmm.
So it's like it might be an area where you might need some more help, right? Some support from your environment, some quick wins. If you read what the watch category often represents, is we might look for some easy wins and getting you some support.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking we might find like a habit, something to really kind of boost um, your physicality in a way that serves your emotional health and all the other categories, right? We're looking for that
Hmm.
halo effect. So those are the three in looking at your life map that I have the most interest in.
Hmm.
Just following the breadcrumbs that um, that is really your perspective.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, this is an expression tool.
Mhm.
It allows a client to go through and really safely answer some really important questions about their life and express that either to themselves or to the coach. And in that expression, we can follow the insights to find the actions that will have the most meaning for you. So, in those three categories, Dr. Renee, are those three categories, do they hit the right things that you think are the most important to talk about right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for those out there, when we first went through this, we did like even a quicker speed dash through because the initial conversation wasn't really even about me. I was assessing the tool to
Yeah.
consider it as part of my practice. And I didn't really dive in thinking about it for my own wellness, which I have done since. And after we spoke, and a little bit, I shared a little bit when we spoke. When you look at my physical health is in direct correlation to my emotional well being. My mother passing and then losing my job after 28 years from a company that it wasn't just my job, it was an ecosystem of friends, coworkers that I loved. So it was a support system as well. And that emotional the depletion and the loss of two big support emotional support structures and structures that really fed my mental health, my sense of worth, my sense of being needed. I was my mother's caregiver from a health perspective. And all of a sudden, there are these giant voids. So, of course, at least for me, I immediately expressed that with falling into some bad habits around food. Food has always been something I don't drink, I don't smoke. So for me, food tends to be the soothing mechanism, rightly or
Mhm.
wrongly, that I've used to cope. And I also have an a neurological disease that really, when I eat poorly, all of my inflammation just goes
Mhm.
off, which then triggers all sorts of pain issues. So those things are so tightly connected
Mm.
that when I saw this come up, I was like, okay,
Mm.
can't lie, right?
Mm. Mm.
So um, yeah, it was right on the money. And
Mm.
I love that you opened the little dials because I was hoping you would go into this one. Okay, go
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm paying attention to our
to
time.
our
So I'm gonna
time.
I'm gonna I'm
Yes.
gonna I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna wrap. So I'm gonna
Yes.
rapid fire now.
Yes.
And I feel safe to do that because we've been through. So I'm actually
Uh-huh.
not gonna stare at you. I'm gonna stare at the map so people can get a sense
Mhm.
of how the the conversation, how it guides the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, so I actually want to go to emotional health first.
Mhm.
So here are the five questions. These dials represent the five
Mhm.
questions that are asked in the assessment. We call them the well-being uh, dimensions
Mhm.
because they're all correlated to living a full life.
Uh-huh.
I always go on the emotional energy level first, which in this case is quite high.
Uh-huh.
The emotional energy, and this is a unique part about this assessment, is it's one of the only assessments that I've really come across
Mhm.
that um, consciously moves into a person's body, like getting a somatic experience, getting a gauge
Mhm.
of their somatic experience. And that is, we call it the emotional energy level. What I want to focus on here, and this is what I do, is I
Mhm.
come and this graph down here to the bottom left, it's got a wealth of information. So to know that you're an 8 out of 10, and emotional energy is great. I know that in as far as it's related to this category, your mental and emotional health, you're feeling pretty, it's actually positive and lifted. So that means you're probably in a hopeful
Mhm.
space. It probably sounds something like this.
Mhm.
So, it's helping the client to express, and right, Dr. Nunez just validated, yeah, I feel
Mhm.
that way. So great. Now that's an 8, but it's way more helpful when I can compare it to her set
Mhm.
point. So, and I have her set point right in front of me because she's answered the same questions in all 13 life categories. So now I can see that 8 is pretty close to her average, the way she normally walks around. And then I can look down here to get a sneak peek of any other categories that I might immediately want to kind of move to, because I can go and I can see it's actually all pretty high. There's not any major, what I call like an anomaly, right? And you would see that right away in the graph. So, emotionally speaking, you're in a pretty healthy place in all your categories. So I'd venture to guess that you've had some practice in that area. I can
Mhm.
look at your life map and I know
Mhm.
that you've got strong support in your
Mhm.
in your inner relationships. Um, so it's like that would all contribute to it.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
as a coaching direction, even though I usually find like a person's like emotional energy usually directs the recommendation, here it's like you're pretty
Mhm.
solid. I thought financial life might be lower, and
Mhm.
it's not. So it's like that's a really positive thing. Now I'm going to go through the rest of the gauges and just see if there's anything else that pops out for me. Okay, so um, now I'm looking primarily at this,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, in her physical health, as far as capabilities go, there's a slight anomaly. Overall, you've invested in yourself. You have a good degree of confidence in your capabilities to achieve what you want to achieve in almost all of your life categories. And then for physical health, that's a 6 out of 10.
Mhm.
So it's like, even if you want to move into, right, a better space, there's either either a lack of capability or a lack of confidence in that you have that capability.
Both.
Both.
Check,
Yeah.
check.
So
Yes.
for me, I want to move towards the right it informs the coaching direction.
Mhm.
To be like, has there has there ever been a time where you've been successful in your physical health?
Mhm.
Okay. What
Mhm.
can you anchor from that? So
Mhm.
maybe you have more resources than you're giving yourself credit for. That's
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Two, okay, what's the gap? Right, what would you need to know
Mhm.
to feel really capable here? Three, what are the resources? Who can you tap into? I bet you there's somebody in your network that's at like a 10 out of
Yep.
10 out of this, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, how can I support you to have the confidence to go and maybe ask for help?
Mhm.
And then another one here, and I think we actually might have done this when we talked about it, is what's a quick win that you've done in
Mhm.
the past
Mhm.
that would
Mhm.
just pop you into congruence with the way you want to be?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's probably what I would move towards. But I just found that by looking at the graph to be like, okay, let's find a quick win right away. Engagement usually follows. So physical health, so that makes sense,
Mhm.
right? And so this is a sense making tool, not necessarily a science. Looking at my clock. Okay. So that makes sense to me that it's like you're not feeling capable. So it's gonna be harder to be engaged in it. It's
Mhm.
gonna be
Yeah.
harder to pop into there. So it's like simple. Keep it really simple. What's a simple habit we can move towards? Time alignment. I'm mostly talking about your physical, thinking about physical health because it's coming up.
Mhm.
Right. So
Well,
if
and it aligns very much with how if I'm not feeling emotionally great,
mhm,
I prioritize the things that I do based on how much joy they bring me. And
yes,
I can tell you that exercising doesn't bring me a whole lot of joy.
yeah,
But, um, but there's other ways to be healthy, not
yes,
just, exercising. And
mhm,
when when I'm not in the right headspace, I don't prioritize it,
yeah,
even though I know it's good for me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Whereas the other way around, if I'm in a good emotional state and I'm in the right headspace, I basically force myself to do it because I know it's good for me, right? I
yeah,
eat my vegetables even if I don't like them.
yes,
Although I do love vegetables, by the way.
yeah.
But
Me too. Me too.
But as much as I like continuing to be
Yeah.
explored in public, I know we have only a few more, a minute, at least less than a minute. And I want to make sure that we let the audience know if they're interested, if they want more information.
Mm,
I can tell you, I wanted to share this with everyone as a testament to when you reach a certain level in your life. I've done a lot of studying, I've done a lot of introspection. I consider myself very highly capable in the work that I do as a coach, as a leader. But we always need improvement. We always need areas in our lives that need help. We always are going to be needing help in one place or another. So, I want to encourage you to ask for that help and not
mm,
feel that you're alone. I
yeah.
think that this is particularly difficult for some people after COVID. There was so much isolation, and it became even harder to ask for help.
Mm,
So Maurice is at illuminationexperiences.com. I'm at cleancanvasconsulting.com. And you can reach out to us direct message on LinkedIn as well. Um, please seek the help. And this is coming from a person who's not very used to asking for help. I'm very used to giving help, not
mm,
receiving it. And that's why I felt it was important to lead by example in this case.
mm.
And I want to leave that thought with everyone is seek the help that you need. You're not alone. And you can reach us through many different means. And Maurice, why don't you close?
Yeah. Well, I want to close with extreme gratitude to you, opening up your life in the way that you have here is it's the way you show up for your community. It's why we connected right away. It's why I think we're going to be partners
Yes.
in the world. And so I want to close with gratitude for leading by example,
Thank you.
right? It's like moving towards your radical self-awareness because with that becomes your empowerment.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. And we hope to hear from you soon. And I'll see you Thursday when I'm on with Magic. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.